I'm Natasha Kirchuk, and thanks for joining us from our studios in Israel. Coming up in today's newscast, the IDF destroys yet another Hamas tunnel breaching Israeli territory. Airstrikes in Syria send shockwaves all over the Middle East. And you don't have to see to be a winner. Israel's top blind golfer has just scored yet another first-place trophy. Stay tuned for the latest news in Israel. Explosions rocked the Gaza border early this morning. Israeli army officials have confirmed that they've just destroyed a Hamas tunnel, most likely designed for terror, from the Gaza Strip that breached well into Israeli territory. This is the fifth such tunnel to be detected and destroyed by the IDF in recent months. According to officials, this tunnel was quite significant in both size and scope compared to previous tunnels. This one extended several miles beneath the Strip and into southern Israel. It also connected to a network of other tunnels. Hamas has funneled millions of dollars into its tunnel project, an investment that Israeli leaders largely agree would be better spent fixing the humanitarian crisis and suffering of the Gaza citizens. Regardless, Hamas has plunged ahead with its tunnel project, at least until recently. Last year, the army completed a massive underground barrier around the Gaza border designed to detect and destroy terror tunnels. That technology has proven incredibly successful, demolishing 5 tunnels already. And the tunnel's presence have fueled Israeli allegations of ramped terror activity, hidden under the smokescreen of protests along the Gaza border for 3 consecutive weekends. Well, on that note, Palestinians in Gaza have just protested along the Israel-Gaza border for the 3rd weekend in a row. And as usual, these demonstrations quickly erupted into violence, with scores of Palestinians seen hurling stones and firing weapons at Israeli soldiers. The IDF, of course, responded with force, but what's interesting to note is how the overall number of Gazans engaged in this week's protests dropped significantly compared to previous weekends. And ILTV's Aaron Porras is here with more. So, Aaron, why are we seeing this decline?
Primarily, it's believed that this decline is reflective of actual attitudes that are held in Gaza. I mean, remember that of the original 30,000 protesters that we saw in that first weekend, many, if not most of them, are affiliated with Hamas or the Palestinian Islamic Jihad or some other sort of terror group. And even more so, the IDF believes that for Hamas, more bodies means, especially killed bodies, is better for the propaganda, so to speak, to keep the Palestinian issue at the top of everybody's mind. And as we know, so far, about 31 Palestinians have been killed.
And speaking of that, there are many who believe that what is going on at the border right now is somewhat of a public relations battleground more than anything. Can you speak to that?
Yeah, I mean, I'll say this, that Hamas leaders have acknowledged that this protest, as I just said, is keeping this issue at the top of the public eye. But, altogether, they know that this isn't really going anywhere. For them, it does look like they know that this is a sort of propaganda. I mean, the March of Return, for example, the fact that they're calling it a March of Return means that they're demanding that Israel allow the right of return to Palestinians, which means millions of Palestinians from Syria, Lebanon, Jordan, Egypt, Gaza, the West Bank would all be allowed to flood back into Israel, something they know Israel will never allow. Right. On top of that, you also have 2 more reasons is Hamas is calling it a peaceful sit-in, something we already know is not true. Even Gaza has asked them to stop this protest early because of the destabilization that it's posing. And finally, the number of protesters. Again, if we saw 30,000 maximum, many of whom are incentivized to be there at the protest, and that number has dwindled. Out of the 2 million that are living in Gaza alone, it speaks towards towards how many people are actually believing in this cause.
All right, well, we're just going to have to wait and see if these protests end anytime soon. Thank you for joining us.
I'll keep you updated.
U.S. President Donald Trump has just coordinated a massive series of airstrikes against targets in Syria, along with France and the United Kingdom. The attacks pummeled sites central to Assad's chemical weapons cache, but the Pentagon has just confirmed that Syria is still very capable of launching yet another deadly chemical weapons attack.
I spoke to the president this morning, and he said if the Syrian regime uses this poisonous gas again, the United States is locked and loaded. When our president draws a red line, our president enforces the red line.
Israeli leaders have widely praised the assault, saying it's about time other world leaders recognized the atrocities in Syria and punished Assad accordingly. Word is that the White House even coordinated this strike with Israeli intelligence right down to 0 hour. Though satellite images do indeed confirm the extent of the airstrike's success, analysts worry that the attacks may have actually done little, if anything, to deter Syria's ultimate goals. Key to this is the fact that Russia, which holds both essential operational and territorial power in Syria, is largely unimpacted from the bombing. Furthermore, considering Trump has since declared the situation as mission accomplished, Iranian influence in Syria, as coordinated by Russia, remains strong. For Israel, the true concern is that the United States may see its role in this matter done before the true war with Iran is actually waged. Whether this attack truly makes a dent or whether it was much ado about nothing still remains to be seen. Joining us now with more on how the escalations in Syria might affect Israel and the rest of the region is Dr. Martin Sherman, the founder and executive director for the Israel Institute for Strategic Studies. So, Martin, I guess the big question here is a full-on war on the horizon. Is that something that Israel's looking towards right now?
Well, that's not an implausible outcome, I'll put it that way. I think for the first time in a very long period of time, Israel could be facing a situation which could degenerate into a strategic threat to it. And I think it would be a very grave mistake, as it has been over the last decade, to base your policy on any benign assumptions. I mean, if you look at the targets that were chosen for this attack, they completely discredit Assad's commitment to abolish weapons, chemical weapon production. Because what was hit? A research center, a production facility, and a storage facility, which shouldn't have existed in the first place.
But there are reports that some of these warehouses were empty. So I guess the question here, the U.S. ambassador to the UN, Nikki Haley, actually said the U.S. is locked and loaded to strike again. Is that going to happen? But is this even a threat that's going to be a deterrent?
Well, I sincerely hope lock and loaded is the present American position, because if all they're going to do is basically have a symbolic attack to try and get out of the accusations of doing nothing, then I don't think this last attack is going to do any good. And in fact, it might even make the situation worse.
Well, what is the end goal in Syria? I mean, what would a victory look like?
Well, it depends who you're talking about. I mean, for Israel, obviously the ultimate goal would be for the Iranians to pull out. Mm-hmm. But there's so many actors with diverse and even divergent interests there. The Russians don't really care about the Iranians taking over Syria, but they do care about preserving their own interests in the Eastern Mediterranean.
Well, if Assad were to be toppled, who would take over?
Excellent question, and which in many ways emphasizes the grave situation in Syria, where there are no real good options. I think the best thing that Israel can hope for is for containment, hope that the US will show some resolve and commitment to staying there and blocking the Russians, inhibiting Israeli freedom of action, because perhaps one of the gravest threats is that if this attack now induces the Russians to bring in advanced anti-aircraft systems, this could seriously inhibit Israel's ability to operate in Europe.
All right,
Syria, sorry.
Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
In a shocking reversal, Uganda has for the first time just publicly admitted that the country is in talks with the Israeli government to accept deported African asylum seekers. At this time, however, Ugandan officials are refusing to comment on whether or not that means they'll accept those deported against their will, a move that goes against Ugandan refugee law and is widely unheard of in the developed world. ILTV's Brett Allen Smith is here now with more.
Thanks, Natasha. Okay, so I've got a few things to add here. One big thing is that this announcement comes just a few hours after another bombshell report made big headlines here. In the past few years, Israel's deported almost 700 asylum seekers to Uganda already under this voluntary deportation plan, which Uganda denies, by the way. One of the promises Israel made deportees was that they would receive legal visas to settle and work in Uganda, which is what the state claims they'll receive now under these controversial forced deportations. But journalists were able to obtain these visas from the court records, and when they presented them to Ugandan immigration, the officials immediately said that they were forgeries, totally fake. And Israeli officials now seem to agree that the visas don't look like anything like the legal travel documents you're supposed to get in Ben Gurion Airport. There isn't even a signature on the documents other than a blurry electronic signature that just has a first name, George.
Right. Now, normally I'd say that the timing of Uganda's statement couldn't just be coincidence, but in this case, the pressure has been building on this case for quite a while. Today, the Israeli government has a court deadline to either greenlight the deportations once and for all, or else release nearly 200 asylum seekers that are currently in prison.
Right, so there's actually a really big update on that, too. We've just learned that all 200 prisoners are being released today. That means that the plan with Uganda has not come together, despite Israeli officials saying that it was more or less going to be a sure thing.
Obviously, the talks with Uganda are still ongoing, especially now that a deal is more or less out in the open. But after years of denial, I will say, what can we expect given this new transparency?
Well, transparency is a funny word, but I will say that the government has painted itself into a corner on this one because Netanyahu U-turned harsh from a UN deal to resettle half of these 40,000 safely to Western countries. And instead, he's promised his citizens that he'll expel every last one instead, men, women, and children, the majority of whom would receive legal protection as refugees in almost any other country. So for Netanyahu to fulfill that promise, he needs to, make a way for those forced deportations to happen in Israel. He needs to find a country that's going to be complicit with accepting them, which is essentially that's being complicit in violating international refugee law. Problem is, according to Uganda, they're only in talks to take about 500 from Israel on the condition that they leave willingly. So maybe the state's hoping that this opens the door for forced deportations down the road, or maybe it just plans to do that behind closed doors. Either way, these are getting into murky waters here.
All right, well, obviously, Israel's deportation plan has ignited a lot of controversy on both sides. The majority of Israelis seem to back the deportations against the testimonies of doctors, lawyers, and even Holocaust survivors that have been begging otherwise. But we're going to have to wait and see where this goes. Thanks for joining us, Brett.
Of course.
All right, well, if you love a good steak, particularly well done or singed to a nice crisp, we have some very bad news for you. A new Israeli study has just linked red meat with a string of chronic diseases, including liver disease, heart disease, and diabetes. But here's what stands out. The longer the meat is cooked, the worse these statistics get. This revelation compounds scientific arguments suggesting that red meat should be heavily reduced, if not taken out entirely from our weekly diets. Studies have historically linked excessive red meat consumption to cancer, heart disease, and diabetes. But this is the first time it's been linked to chronic conditions of the liver as well. The team at the University of Haifa researched the eating habits and medical tests of nearly 800 participants over an extended period of time. And the numbers were shocking to say the least. Those that ate well-cooked red or processed meat were almost 50% more likely to develop a liver disease known as non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. In terms of damaging your liver, this is similar to what happens after years of excessive drinking or alcoholism. On top of that, subjects were nearly 55% more inclined to develop a resistance to insulin, skyrocketing one's risk of diabetes and heart disease by over half. Researchers say this study is even more evidence that you should consider switching to fish, turkey, or chicken if you prefer an animal protein in your diet. But on top of that, they strongly advise steaming or boiling your meat over grilling or frying it. I know everyone out there loves their barbecues, but clearly it's time to take the warnings seriously. And don't forget, you can always ask your nearest vegetarian or vegan friend for a good tofu dog recommendation. When Netflix announced a 6-part miniseries about Israel's most famous Mossad spy, Eli Cohen, I doubt they had Borat in mind for the role. But guess again, in a rare and dramatic turn, funny man Sacha Cohen has just scored the role of Eli Cohen, the Israeli spy who infiltrated Syria's inner circle in the 1960s before being exposed and ultimately executed in Damascus. For anyone worried about taking the Oscar-nominated comedian seriously in a dramatic role like this, I think you can rest easy. The perpetrator behind Ali G and Bruno is not only renowned for his deep devotion to whatever character he's playing, but Cohen himself has deep roots in Israel. His mother was actually born in Israel, and the actor spent time volunteering in a kibbutz in his youth, after being raised in a Jewish day school in the United Kingdom. And don't forget, while portraying his famous Kazakh reporter, that wasn't Kazakhstan's native language he was speaking, it was Hebrew. This series is also yet another Israeli format getting the Netflix treatment. The 6-episode special is getting a major Hollywood budget, written and developed by one of Israel's most acclaimed filmmakers, Gideon Raff. Raff created the original series that was adapted in the U.S. as Homeland, and his new film about the 1981 airlift of Ethiopian Jews to Israel, the Red Sea diving resort, drops later this year. So I'll just say it, this all sounds very nice to me. All right, if you love doing yoga, it may be time to head to the Holy Land. For the third year in a row, Israel will be holding its annual International Yoga Festival. And joining us with the scoop is entrepreneur and the producer of Yoga Fest, Nir Chaim Shakarov. Hello, thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
All right, so where is this going to be taking place? How many people are going to be joining? I want to hear about this event.
Yes, so it's the third year of the festival.
Yeah.
We are gathering a few hundreds of people up north in the Sachne, in Gan HaShlosha. So there is a beautiful natural water. Times Magazine names this park one of the most beautiful parks, one of the most 20 most beautiful parks in the world.
So you're going to have a nice view while you are working out or practicing yoga.
Very nice view, and also a natural water that we treat as a water zone. With treatment and workshops in the water.
Wow.
And it's a lot of zones that work parallel. So you can choose in each hour where to go. There's
and
dynamic.
It seems like there are performances as well, right? There's music.
Yeah, music is very essential and integral part of the festival. A lot of the workshops are with live music, and of course the concerts in the evening and next to the water.
So do you have to sign up to join this festival? How does it work?
Yeah, so we have our website, yogafestival.co.il, and you just go, there is all the information. It's just one ticket, and you can be joining whatever workshop is best for you.
How long is the festival going for?
It's 3 days.
3 days,
really,
okay.
we are building like a village of yoga.
So you can sleep there. You sleep there,
Of
you
course,
eat there.
of
That's
course.
amazing. Okay.
We have camping, and all the things are very set up. There's rooms in the area that people are sleeping in. And really we try to create like a small village of yoga, music and inspiration for 3 days, and to create something that people can take with them outside of the festival.
Well, I'm sure there are a lot of tourists who are going to see this and want to join in, and I hope that this year is as successful as it was last year. Thank you for joining us.
Yes, thank you.
All right, guys, go to yogafestival.co.il to check out more. It looks like Israeli tech is about to power one of the biggest sports companies on the planet, Nike. Nike has just announced its purchase of an Israeli startup company specializing in fashion tech, and the buy could literally redefine how we shop for clothes and shoes. So if you love your Nikes, you'll want to listen up. The Tel Aviv-based startup Invertex Limited is on the cutting edge of applying computer vision and AI with fashion. Their latest tech breakthrough is a system that scans the bodies of customers, analyzes it, and then tells you what size shoes and clothes you should be buying for the comfiest fit. Some Nike stores already offer an in-store digital tablet that helps shoppers pick the right size. Coupling that with this AI scanning tech would almost definitely redefine the shopping experience as we know it. Now, look, some of us like to try on everything in the store anyway before we buy. But with Israeli tech telling us ahead of time what sizes we should aim for, it could save shoppers a whole lot of time. Invertex has been one of the fastest up-and-coming startups in Israel. Last year, it raised $2 million in funding from a venture capital firm in Jerusalem. Now they've just been bought by the most profitable and recognized brand in the world. And when the offer came in, they probably didn't think twice and just did it. We're now just a few days ahead of Israel's 70th birthday celebrations, and a very unique exhibition is opening up just in time. Team Exhibition will be showcasing the work of over 100 artists that served in the Israeli military, and their art is inspired by their time defending the country. Joining us with more is painter and owner of Integratica Ltd, Brigadier General Ika Abravanel. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
All right, so this exhibit is in honor of Israel's 70th. Tell us about what this means to you and kind of how you came up with this idea to put together an exhibition like this.
The idea is to find the right place that the people from the IDF in the first career there, they don't have the time to pay attention for their art. So in the second career, they try to convert themselves into their art. And these 100 people, it's not only artists, also writers are going to take place in this exhibition.
And from what I understand, most of this art is actually kind of a reflection of the experience that they had in the military as well. So is this maybe art therapy of a sort, or is this just kind of work that these people do for a living?
It's a great question, because I think the image of military is exactly the opposite. We consider to be tough, inflexible, and non-pluralistic, and it's not. We are people as other people. We have our emotions and feelings, but we don't have the time to express it through art or through writing. Now, in the second career, in my case, it's the third career because I spent 20 years in the business sector, we can change the combination of activities and to decide what is the core. And some of us decided that the core is art.
Well, I think this is amazing, and I can't even imagine what the experience is like of going to an exhibition like this. Are some of the artists going to be there as well?
Sure. They're going to participate and they're going to show their works. And
like you said, there are writers as well.
Yeah, there is an evening with the writers that is going to be very organized by the IDF Association.
Perfect. So just to confirm, this exhibition is opening on April 29th, right?
Yes.
Where is it going to be?
In Givatayim Theater.
Beautiful. All right. Well, this is amazing, and thank you so much for joining us and giving us some insight.
Thank you.
All right, well, here is some exciting news for global Jewish community members. There may be a new member of the tribe, and it's none other than former NBA All-Star Amare Stoudemire. The basketball champion is reportedly converting to Judaism, and ILTV's Emmanuel Kadosh has all of the details.
Thanks, Natasha. Well, this news doesn't come as too much of a shock because the former NBA All-Star has long been claiming to have Hebrew roots. Stoudemire is no stranger to Judaism. He studied the religion as well as practiced its cultural customs. Now he's simply making it official by converting to the Jewish religion. The 35-year-old reportedly told an HBO sports reporter at a Harvard University event last week that he's in the process currently of converting.
Well, this definitely doesn't shock me. Amare has always expressed his connection to his Hebrew roots, and he even moved to Israel to play for Hapoel Jerusalem, a club that he actually partly owns, and he led that team to championship. I actually met him back in 2013 when I was working for the former Israeli president, and he was always traveling here to meet with leaders. He was so passionate about the country.
Right. Well, Stoudemire is reportedly trying to become a citizen of the state of Israel. He apparently is converting in order to get acclimated to the culture in Israel as well as apply for citizenship. But he did make it a point to say that him converting has nothing to do with citizenship specifically, but more spiritual journey, and says his goal is to, quote, get into the kingdom. I absolutely love his outlook on this, the way he talks about the state of Israel and his appreciation for Judaism. It's just amazing.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's certainly going to be interesting to see how this conversion goes. But thanks for joining us, Emmanuel. And obviously, we're going to be waiting to see if he makes his way back to Israel.
Exactly. Thank you.
All right. One of Israel's top world-winning athletes is a man named Zohar Sharon. His sport of choice is golf, which is maybe why you aren't as familiar with him, but trust me, you should be. And that's because on top of being one of the world's top-ranked golf players, Zohar actually plays the game without seeing. He's 100% blind. Zohar was actually serving in Israel's Shin Bet security agency in the 1970s when he lost his eyesight. He sustained a severe chemical injury on the job that permanently rendered him blind, as well as hearing impaired, and gave him an array of neurological problems. But that didn't stop him from becoming one of Israel's most prestigious athletes. He plays a version of golf for the seeing impaired called blind golf. And honestly, blind golf sounds just as demanding and difficult as the original game itself. The two versions of the game have slight differences to help the blind play. In blind golf, for example, the caddy helps assist the golfer around the course, advising the player on distances and tricky terrain. The other big difference is that the caddy is allowed to stand behind the hole while the golfer is putting on the green. But other than that, the games are basically the same. Zohar started taking his golf game seriously in 2000, and he's been on a roll winning tournaments and championships all over the world ever since. And get this, he's just landed his biggest win to date, first place at the ISPS Handa 2018 Blind Golf Open in Arizona. As if Zohar wasn't amazing enough, whenever he wins a cash prize from a tournament, he sends all of the money to help disabled IDF veterans. Keep kicking butt, Zohar. Here comes our Hebrew word of the day. Israel's top blind golfer makes winning gold medals look easy. So today's word is iver, which is how you say blind in Hebrew. As the saying goes, justice is iver, or blind, and for good reason. The symbol of the court, Lady Justice, is iveret because by taking away her sight, she judges everyone equally. There really is so much we can learn from our friends who are iverim, like how to trust our other senses, how to listen, and how to judge a book, or how to not judge a book by its cover. All right, let's go ahead and take a look at the weather forecast. The skies both tonight and tomorrow should be clear and warm with a rise in temperatures tomorrow throughout the day. The low tonight will be around 60 or 16 degrees Celsius, and the high tomorrow is expected to be roughly 77 or 25 degrees Celsius. All right, that's it for today's news. Today's exchange rate is 3.52 shekels to the American dollar. Remember to sign up for our daily newsletter at ILTV.tv, and don't forget to follow us on Facebook at Israel English News and on Twitter at ILTV News. I'm Natasha Kirchuk, and thanks for watching.